In the shimmering heat of Botswana's Tuli block, where the Limpopo River snakes its way across the dry savannah and baobab trees tower like sentinels over the floodplain, a canoe drifted quietly over calm water. On board was a man who had spent his entire life confronting danger, not in the wild, but in the microscopic world of disease. And yet, it was here, on this ancient river of predators and stillness, that Dr. Richard K. Root would meet a fate more brutal than anything he had spent a lifetime trying to prevent. Richard K. Root was not a man of spectacle. He was a man of precision, intellect, and purpose. Born in 1937 in New York City, he came of age in a post-war America that had begun to place its trust in science. After graduating from Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in 1963, he began a career that would make him one of the most respected infectious disease experts in the world. His work took him to the front lines of HIV/AIDS research, to classrooms where future physicians found their calling, and to hospitals where modern medicine was at its most vulnerable. He taught at Yale, he led programs at UCSF, he was chair of medicine at the University of Washington. In 1999, he became the first editor-in-chief of the journal Clinical Infectious Diseases. But he was more than a resume. He was a mentor, a husband, a man with quiet conviction. In 2006, at the age of 68, Dr. Root was invited by the University of Pennsylvania to work on a public health initiative in Botswana. The country was then at the center of one of the world's most severe HIV/AIDS epidemics. Root had already spent decades on the disease's front lines and saw in Botswana not just a professional opportunity, but a moral one. He didn't need to be there, he chose to be. His goal was simple: to strengthen local healthcare capacity by training doctors and nurses to confront the epidemic with better tools and better knowledge. He was driven by the belief that if you have expertise, you owe it to those in need, said a colleague. He wasn't there for recognition, he was there because it mattered. For weeks, he worked out of Gaborone, visiting clinics and teaching local staff. He was accompanied by his wife, Rita O'Boyle, who had retired from her own medical career to support his work abroad. The couple had traveled extensively and were no strangers to Africa, its wonders, and its risks. On March 19, 2006, they took a weekend trip to the Limpopo River, looking for a moment of rest amid a grueling schedule. The river, which forms part of Botswana's southern border, is famous for its wildlife. Hippos, crocodiles, birds in brilliant flocks. Tourists visit from around the world to paddle its quiet stretches and feel, if only for a moment, the timeless pulse of the bush. They joined a small group on a canoe safari. These outings are designed to be slow, non-invasive, and immersive. You don't rush, you don't disturb, you drift. The guides are trained, the animals, usually, keep their distance. But nature is not a contract. According to reports, as the canoe floated through a particularly still section of the river, a large crocodile, likely 12 to 15 feet long, exploded from the water and snatched Dr. Root from the vessel. It happened in seconds. He was there, then he wasn't. Despite immediate rescue attempts, the current and the animal's force were too much. His body was found days later, downstream. The news made international headlines. Renowned American doctor killed by crocodile in Botswana, the headlines read. But for those who knew him, it wasn't the horror of the event that lingered. It was the abruptness, the disbelief. How a man who had given his life to protecting others could be lost so suddenly, so senselessly, in the very place he had come to serve. Back home, the medical community was in shock. At the University of Washington, where he had trained hundreds of young doctors, memorials sprang up spontaneously. At Penn, his colleagues held a service in his honor. Tributes flowed in from every corner of medicine, not because he was famous, but because he had mattered. He brought rigor and humility to every room, said one former student. He didn't talk about making a difference, he just did it. But Dr. Root's story didn't end with grief. In the months that followed, his death sparked conversations about risk, purpose, and the nature of humanitarian service. Should doctors in global health be exposed to such danger? Could more have been done to prevent it? These questions had no easy answers, but what emerged was something deeper, an acknowledgement that service, real, on-the-ground service, comes with stakes that go beyond the clinical. His wife, Rita, returned to the U.S. with quiet dignity. She gave a single statement: Richard died doing what he loved, and in a place he respected. She later helped launch a scholarship in his name to fund infectious disease training in sub-Saharan Africa. That scholarship has since helped dozens of local physicians expand their training, each one carrying forward the values Dr. Root held dear. Today, the ripples of his work can still be felt in Botswana's medical community. In the hospitals of Gaborone, protocols he helped shape remain in place. At international conferences, his name is spoken not with tragedy but with admiration. And in every debate about ethical fieldwork, about safety versus sacrifice, his example serves as a compass. He wasn't reckless, he wasn't naive, he understood the risks. But more than that, he understood the value of being present, of showing up, of offering what you know to those who need it most. His story, in the end, is not about death. It's about choosing life in the fullest, most courageous way possible. It's about a man who believed in science and humanity and who refused to separate the two. And it's about the river, silent, dangerous, unchanged. Because in the wild, just like in disease, control is an illusion. But courage, as Dr. Richard K. Root showed us, is not. Dr. Richard K. Root's death was a tragic loss not just to the world of medicine, but to the global community he served with humility and conviction. His story reminds us that even the most accomplished, disciplined, and careful among us are not immune to the unpredictability of nature. But more importantly, it highlights the profound courage required to step into unfamiliar terrain, not for personal gain, but to extend care, education, and hope. Root's legacy endures far beyond the banks of the Limpopo River. It lives in the physicians he mentored, the protocols he improved, the students he inspired, and the countless lives his research helped protect. His willingness to be present, truly present, in places that needed him most is what sets his story apart. In a world often driven by comfort and caution, his life was defined by commitment and compassion. We often ask what it means to live a meaningful life. Dr. Root answered that question not with words, but with action. He walked beside disease, beside danger, and beside communities in crisis, not to be remembered, but to be of use. And in that he remains unforgettable.